Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar today on the SME Challenges 2021. This is a webinar following on from our survey where we surveyed SMEs at the back end of 2020. Before I get going, I just wanted to do some introductions. So you've got myself, Greg Guilford. I'm the CEO of HR Solutions. And today we have Renwick, the Director of Deloitte Propel. We also have Dominic Greenwood, who's our Senior Health and Safety Consultant. We were going to have Victoria join us, but we've got Sue Watson joining us instead. And we've also got Ateem Arden, our Digital Marketing Executive, who will be helping with any technical challenges that you have. For those of you who've been with us on previous webinars, you know we like to have audience participation. So we've just got a couple of slides to show you how to ask questions, just to make it easy for you. Obviously, everybody is on mute, so we don't allow you to sort of talk over us while we're presenting, but we do want you to ask us questions. And to do that, you will have a chat panel on your GoToWebinar app that should be on your screen somewhere, and it should look something like this, which says questions. And if you put your question in there, then a member of the team will either answer you as we go along, or we might read your question out at the right point throughout the webinar. We also like to run a few polls, so there is a couple of polls throughout this webinar as well, and it would be appreciated if you can engage with us with those polls. So as I mentioned, this webinar is about the SME challenges on the back of the report that the survey that we ran at the back end of 2020 and the report that we prepared and issued throughout December and January. So the main challenges that were identified in that report, no surprise that Brexit was at the top of those challenges. COVID-19, which was second spike, and this was before there was a second spike. Also a recession, business financial performance, challenges around securing new business, keeping pace with changes in technology. Information security was highlighted as a challenge as well. And then the other key areas around new legislation and also cash flow management. We're not going to cover all of those in today's session, but those highlighted in pink will be themes that we pull out as we go through the session. For those of you who haven't had a copy of the report, the link is on the screen at the moment if you wanted to download that, and I will put a link in the chat, and also we will follow that up when we follow up after the webinar with an email with that link as well. So the first part we're going to focus on is around the human resources aspect of the survey, and then we'll pass on to Dom to talk about health and safety, and Graham and Adil will talk about the finance impacts. So as part of the HR section, on the screen you've got a chart from the report that we conducted, and it highlights there a number of issues that SMEs identified as challenges that they foresee in 2021 on the back of COVID-19. So obviously in these unpredictable times, effective people management is critical, and as part of that survey, these SME leaders identified a number of things. So employee capability, new employment legislation, which predominantly will be on the back of leaving the European Union, retention of employees, talent attraction, management of home workers and or remote workers, company culture, diversity, employee development and employee benefits were all key themes that came out of that. So we're just going to focus on some of the higher ones there. So you can see 62% of the SMEs that responded believe that remote workforce management will remain an important aspect over the next 12 months. Even with this new vaccine, we believe home working is still likely to be in place for several more months as this is rolled out. And they're talking about perhaps August, September, everybody being vaccinated, so it's still some time away. It's also likely that people have got used to working at home, and we might see a few more flexible working requests come in later in the year where businesses start to reopen their offices. And so while most companies are now well prepared for remote working, difficulties can still arise where communication breaks down due to not being in the office with each other. So that's still an issue that people are going to want to try and identify. Half of SME surveys also felt that employee development would present the biggest challenge to the business over the next 12 months. So this is understandable. Training and upskilling may feel like an unnecessary expense during a financial crisis, but it is essential to boosting productivity and retaining loyal staff. So if an employee feels unmotivated to work or believes they're stuck in a role with no room to grow, then they will soon look to other companies who can offer them the benefits or career growth opportunities that they might seek. There might not be as many opportunities out there, but you might still see people looking for new roles. Employee development is especially beneficial to SMEs where the workforce has been reduced, as staff have the opportunity to learn new skills and take on more responsibility within their roles, achieving better operational efficiency spite of job cuts or furlough absences. So you might use employee development to help upskill some of your current employees as well, which may negate having to recruit additional staff. Additionally, 50% of SMEs indicated that cultivating the right company culture was also going to be a challenge for them over the next 12 months. Obviously, COVID-19 has opened the gate for remote working, as we've just discussed, but as we see more companies shift away from traditional desk-bound corporate structures, we believe SME leaders are likely to see increased pressure to create a more flexible, inclusive working environment as well. So that's slightly more challenging when everybody is going to be remote or potentially remote. So you might see traditional company cultures changing as we move into the next phase, and also trying to engage with those employees is likely to be a bit more challenging, but they're likely, you need to engage with them to make sure that you're able to create the right culture that you're looking for, either establish it or to maintain it. So it's quite a few things that SMEs need to look at over the next 12 months. So in the report, we also put forward some recommendations for SMEs as well. So just to sort of run through those for you, and there is a bit more detail in the report. So obviously home working support we've touched about. And we really need to look at home worker risk assessments, and Dom's going to talk a bit more detail about that a little bit later. But obviously everybody working at home, you need to make sure they're not standing at an ironing board with a laptop on their desk. And I know we joke about that, and there was some scenarios where we've seen that happen over the first and second lockdown periods. So we just need to still make sure that people are working in a safe manner, even though they're working at home. We also need to ensure that managers catch up with employees, and it's not just about emails, but set aside time for calls or online meetings with your staff. Reaching out to your staff will just provide them that extra support that they might be looking for. And they might tell you something or a particular challenge that they're going through over a call than they would particularly on an email. You also need to just check your employees have all the equipment that they need as well to make sure they're doing their job. Obviously headsets, laptops, monitors as needed. And some people have been working at home for nearly a year now. Some of those devices may need replacing. So you might just want to make sure that everybody still has the right equipment to do their job. Obviously, as we've gone into another lockdown and schools are closed as well, you might need to reach out to your staff to just make sure that you understand all their different needs as well. And that might be those of us who are juggling homeschooling. Some of you may be trying to do that as you're on the webinar. It's a particularly difficult time to do that, but just sort of try and be flexible and where you can with those team members to support them. But also there might be people who are looking after vulnerable family members who might just need a little bit of extra support, or maybe sort of a bit more flexible arrangements to still be able to check in on those vulnerable people as well. Obviously on there we've talked about HR support, and there'll be a mix of people on the webinar who already might be in a HR role or SME business owners who don't have HR support. But obviously there's been a lot of change in relation to how to manage employees over the past year, particularly around furlough, flexible furlough, and sort of managing home workers. So just consider if you don't have access to HR support, whether you can outsource those requirements, just to help you stay up to date with legislation. Also make sure you've got the right documentation you need to send out to employees at different stages, and all around help you to have more support to help you to manage your employees. Then the other aspects is around employee development. So Obviously, developing your employees will help your overall team's performance as well, and you should get better results out of them. Obviously, when everyone's working at home, it's slightly harder to arrange training, but you need to consider, can you have access to some online training for them? And that might be some online videos that they can do, or assignments, but also a lot of people, including ourselves, can now run training courses online. So it's not necessarily about having to send people to venues anymore. So you might just need to think about any employee development that you might not have done over the last 12 months, and that's quite a long time to not develop your staff. And also some employees would be looking for that development experiences as well. So just think about it, whether you have access to any tools that you can help develop them over the next couple of weeks and months. I know talent attraction might sound strange because we're in a pandemic and there will be lots of candidates on the market, but that doesn't mean you're going to find the right candidate. So attracting the right talent will still be a challenge, and also sifting through the increase in applications you're likely to have for any roles that you might be fortunate to be recruiting for. So just be clear about the role that you're looking for, as well as the skill set that you think you need to have the successful for the successful candidate to have, just to make sure that you can filter out easily anybody who doesn't meet those criteria, and also put off people who don't meet those criteria as well. Make your life slightly easier to going through the shortlisting process as well. But also you might want to consider using a managed service to help you create those job descriptions and the adverts that go on the job boards, and also to do the first phase shortlisting for you as well, just to give you a bit more time back if you're struggling. The other aspect is about employee engagement, and that links back to company culture as well. Obviously, most employees are working from home and relatively isolated from the business. So you should consider how you're engaging with them to help keep them motivated as well. We saw a lot of good examples in sort of lockdown 1 and 2 around sort of weekly calls, team meetings, there was quizzes, even people now are moving to do escape room type scenarios, just to sort of do a bit of team building, getting staff together. But you need to really sort of try and keep that employee engagement going, not just sort of working with team members and colleagues, but also understanding how people are feeling. So perhaps running an employee engagement survey to find out how your employees are actually feeling might be a useful time to do that. On the screen, there is a link to Engagement Multiplier, which is a tool that we use. There's actually a free version available for everybody to take a trial of that, which is a good tool to get some insights about your employees, and then put some actionable plans in place to address any areas that you need to. So that was really all I wanted to cover today from the HR side of things. Obviously, there's a lot to cover in this webinar, so we will be running some future webinars on different aspects of these recommendations as well. So before I pass you over to Dom, I just wanted to do a quick poll just to see if that you would be wanted to reach out to us to follow up on any of the topics we've discussed in terms of how we might be able to help you with any of your requirements. So if you'd like to find out any more about home working risk assessments, HR support for SMEs, e-learning, a recruitment service, or employee engagement surveys, then please tick as many that has applied to you, and then we'll reach out to you after the webinar. Okay, I'm just going to leave it a few more seconds, and then I'm going to pass over to Dom. Okay, I'm just going to pass you over to Dom, who's going to talk about health and safety.
Can you see that, everybody? Greg, if you can just let me know if that's coming through.
No, not yet.
Sorry, everybody. Let me just see if I can change that at all. There we go. So I'm going to just give me a thumbs up if that's coming through now.
Yep, that's fine. We can see your screen now.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to say thanks to Greg for inviting me on this webinar today. And my role within the organisation is health, safety and environmental management consultant. So thanks. Obviously, the big three areas to think about, which had the highest scores and the highest percentage of interest, were mental health at work, with a massive score of 96%. COVID-19 safe workplace, it's in and around us all the time now in the news, we can't get away from it, 95%, and then the home worker risk assessments at 82%, and there obviously were other areas as well, but they're the three areas we're going to talk about over the next few minutes. So if we think about mental health in the workplace first, and the general impact on the workplace really is that 1 in 4 adults are experiencing or have experienced at least one diagnosable mental health problem in any given year. And again, as I said earlier, there's a number of media channels, and it's on TV and everything else all the time about mental health and the impact certainly that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on everybody that's either working from home because they may feel isolated, or they're in the workplace because they might feel scared, vulnerable, and or about the future of their job stroke position. If we then look at how many working days are generally lost every year due to stress, depression or anxiety, 57% of working days are lost due to a mental health condition in the workplace. So it's important for you to think about what you're doing with your mental health procedures, practices, and how you're supporting your staff, as Greg was alluding to earlier in his presentation. Poor mental health carries an economic and social burden, with around £105 billion a year in England and £10.8 billion a year in Scotland being used to try and help the mental health crisis, with half of all mental health problems already established in young people in our society. And these could be the people that you guys are going to be recruiting over the next coming weeks, months, and years. So this is a government challenge, as we know. It's a national challenge that there's more mental health support for people that are suffering from an early age. And in 2019 in Great Britain, there were nearly 600,000 cases of work-related stress, depression and anxiety, which led to 15.5 million working days lost. Well, I don't think it would take a mathematician to work out just how much that's not only costing the government in sick pay and possibly NHS fees, but also how much it's costing SMEs with regards to loss of productivity and obviously filling those spaces with other people. And again, evidence suggests that 12.7% of all sickness absent days in the UK can be attributed to some kind of mental health condition. So there's a few facts and figures on there. They're not mine. They are HSE figures, and it's worth everybody having a little look at the HSE website. There's loads of good stuff on there, but there's a number of different reports on there, and this came out of the HSE summary stats in that particular year, and they get updated every 2 years, so it's certainly worth having a look at those. So if we cast our attention to how we can build a positive mental health culture in the workplace, good mental health and well-being is one of the most valuable assets to any organisation. I think you'd all agree with that. And there's a few steps here that you guys can just think about, maybe set as an objective, maybe over the next few weeks and months, to try and improve the mental health culture of in the workplace. And as Greg has already said, I think training is one of the big things we can do. There's more of a push now for online training, virtual training, as more and more people are working from home. There's a number of online courses available, and there's training that we can help signpost you towards. So just generally raising the awareness of mental health in the organisation is key. But have you got a mental health risk policy? Is there anything that you've actually put in place? Have you sat down with your senior leadership teams or your senior management teams to think about what you're going to do to promote mental health or positive mental health in the organisation, and actually almost put pen to paper and set something in stone? Have you done a mental health risk assessment And again, those dreaded words, risk assessment, are coming up again. No one likes them, apart from me. But it's something that you need to think about doing. You know, what impact could mental health have on the your staff, but also your business, should you need to have people off with mental health issues. Alongside that, there's a stress risk assessment that you can think about doing, because quite a number of mental health conditions in the workplace are born from the work itself. It could be a stress because of workload, it could be the workplace, and certainly, as we know, and we start inviting people back to work, there's a number of people that may be concerned about their vulnerability in the workplace. Is it a COVID secure environment? So I think that's only going to add to the amount of stress that people are going to feel once they're back in the workplace. Something that I think that all companies could benefit from would be the senior management spending more time with all of the staff, from the chief executive having a walk around the site to say hello to new staff, whether it's an MD, an ops director, whoever it might be, or just a senior manager, just spending more time with staff to say, you know, you've done a good job, acknowledge, praise, encourage, a little acronym there, APE. But also, I think it makes the staff and the employees feel like they're part of something, and the SLT and the SMT actually care about what I'm doing. Something worth having a look at is something called a WAP, which is a workplace wellness action plan, or wellness action plan. And in that, it encompasses the stress risk assessment, some parts about mental health, different strategies and different tools that you can think about putting in place to help your workforce become well. And if you think about the term wellness, it encompasses a number of different aspects, from physical wellness to nutrition to mental health, and a number of different things. So there's a number available online, and something we could help you with as well is putting together something called the Workplace Wellness Action Plan. Really good tool, and it's something you can get behind. Is there a counselling service or mental health service that you can bring in from external sources? Is there somebody in your locality, your city, your town? Is there an online app or something that you could actually have and promote to your staff should they feel that they want to access it? You may find that your staff are not going to come to you and say, I've got a mental health problem. I don't think my mental health is where it should be. It's just not something, unfortunately, that is talked about as it should be. So providing some kind of counselling or mental health service would be a really good and positive attribute going forward. Allow greater flexibility for time off for those who need it. I think we're all working from home as we speak at the moment, but as we come back, it may be that some people take longer to come back than others. It may be that, unfortunately, some people have had deaths in their family or relatives who have been unwell due to the pandemic. So it may be that you might have to look at how you can allow greater flexibility for staff that may need to support other members of the family and or themselves. And that leads on to promoting better work-life balances. I think we've all agreed that whilst the lockdowns have been largely very negative, I think we've all enjoyed more time at home with our family and teaching our children. So it might be now is the time to think about how you can promote better work-life balances and look at maybe different ways that your company can work. Is it that you can hold events to promote positive mental health? Could you invite different organisations in to do maybe a seminar or a coaching session, just to get the staff thinking differently about what they're doing inside and outside of work? And there's a number of mental health apps. I was looking earlier today, I think I came across at least 20 to 30 different ones. The vast majority are free, and you could obviously promote those to your staff. Have you got a central area where staff can go? I think a real big one is to appoint some kind of mental health champion or working group. There's a qualification called the mental health first aider, which I actually teach, and it's there really to support the staff and have one central point of contact and a mental health champion. So it'd be great if you could think about potentially upskilling somebody or 2 or 3 members of staff, and they can then talk about a lot of this stuff in meetings and just casually about the day. And then it sounds strange, but could you help staff learn a new life skill? And I put in there language stroke dancing. It could be that you could, I worked for a company a few years ago that had Spanish lessons if anybody wanted to do them, and I think out of a workforce of about 50, 7 or 8 actually went through and learned to speak Spanish. You don't have to learn to do the Spanish, but you could do something else. Is it that the company could support the workforce to learn a new life skill? It's a bit of fun, but it also makes the staff feel like you want to get behind something they really, really want to do. Put a poll out there, maybe it's a survey, maybe it's a meeting, but think about what they might want to do, and it just helps build that positive mental health culture. I'm going to move on, conscious of time, to the COVID-19 secure workplace, because that was another one of the big challenges that you guys felt that should be addressed. And I'm more than happy after the webinar, as Greg shares my details, if anybody wants to talk to me about mental health training or support or documentation, I'm more than happy to take those questions or information. The biggest thing you can do at the moment as we speak is go back and review the COVID-19 risk assessment that you would have put in place sometime around last May or June or July, just after the first lockdown, when you were thinking about maybe coming back to work. You should have done a COVID-19 risk assessment and then produced your COVID secure poster and displayed that. Some companies who are on the call today may not have actually closed, so they may have been working through. So again, you should have done this, but it's now time to go back and review that, because things may have changed. The next thing I think you really should be doing is actually talking to the staff. And I'm not sure whether you do or don't do that, but certainly if staff are working from home, I would imagine or would expect that you're doing Teams meetings, Zoom meetings, all that kind of stuff that we're doing as well. But actually talk to them about what is in the risk assessment. Don't just see the risk assessment as a paper exercise, and because the government have told us to do it, you do it, and it goes in a file and we forget about it. I think you need to share it with all the staff, because they may feel vulnerable. They may want to know what's in it and how it affects them. So it could be that you can publicise it. It could be that you put it in a place where everybody could read it. I think if it's done properly, you shouldn't have anything to worry about what's in there, because there's a number of templates available, and again, we can help you with that. But off the back of that really is to complete a COVID-19 method statement. What are you actually going to do to keep the workplace safe and so that staff can come back? And that's a statement really that would be, it's a statement of intent really, so that your staff can see your commitment to not only health and safety, but to keeping this pandemic and virus out of the workplace. And should anybody come down with it, what is it you're going to do? Procedures and policies that will help you decide what the best course of action is for your establishment. Is there a competent person that will oversee all of this kind of work? If you haven't got a competent person, you absolutely have to have one. It's under the UK regulations for health and safety and fire safety, and it would be this person really that would help maybe an operations director and or MD and above put a lot of this kind of stuff into place and be the eyes and ears on the ground to make sure that this is actually being done and feedback with any comments, questions or queries. Obviously, implement social distancing in the workplace. We're now hearing that it could go up to 3 meters. I'm not sure if anybody's heard that, but it's something I've been hearing from the HSE, that it could go up to 3 meters. That's going to affect probably the signage that you put up 7 to 10 months ago. Think about how that would be with regards to your emergency procedures. If social distancing did go up to 3 meters, could you get everybody out of the building? So you need to think about implementing changes in your emergency action plans and your cleaning schedules to reflect the new social distancing as well. But also thinking about cleaning in the workplace. I'm sure that everybody's doing cleaning and sanitisation as we speak, but just think about reviewing that. Is it still as good as it was 6 to 9 months ago? Has it lapsed in any areas? Is everybody still sanitising their hands and using antibacterial, anti-residual sprays and things like that? And use signage to inform staff and customers on changes in direction around the workplace. It could be that you've had to change how people enter and exit your workplace, how they navigate themselves around. And certainly if you have customers coming in, has that changed? So does everybody know exactly what they should be doing and where they should be going? The emergency action plan would need to reflect all and any of these changes. Again, that shouldn't be seen as a paper exercise. It should be a document and a plan that's been brought to life and is trained, and so that everybody again knows what they're doing should there be an emergency. And don't think an emergency is just a fire, because it could be a fire, it could be a flood, it could be a hostage situation, it could be the building could be struck by lightning, for instance. And you might think I'm, you know, going over the top with some of these, but these things can happen. Only very recently, before Christmas, we had big floods around this area, and some of the workspaces near where we are today were flooded. So that could happen again. So just think about different emergencies that could take place. My view would be to advise face coverings in all and any public areas, and this is a change. I think this is, I personally think this will be brought in by the government over the next week or so, in that any space where there's more than one person in, you should be wearing face coverings. And I will advise all companies to either distribute face coverings or the proper masks to staff, and recommend they wear them in any areas that they're outside of their working bubble. The supermarkets are now going down this route, retail will go down this route, so I think industry, SMEs will have to follow suit, and I think it's the easiest and best way to stop the spread of the virus and the new variant, which we know is up to 50% more transferable. And as we just talked about, reverting back to the 2 metre spacing, but we're now hearing it could go up to 3 metres. Can you provide PPE for all staff in operating in public areas? There's a cost implication to that, but my view would be to see if you can provide gloves and masks to everybody. And certainly if anybody's using chemicals, tools, things like that, they should have their own PPE anyway. And then think about recording the details of any visitors you have on site for 21 days. Do they actually need to be there at the moment? If they don't need to be there, my view would be is that you can do things remotely, meetings, whatever it might be. However, I understand some companies are providing services, products that need to be collected. So just think about how they're being collected, who's collecting them, where they're going, and recording their details should there be an investigation, or you should be asked to provide that. So different tools you can use, just moving on. There is a COVID-19 self-assessment that we've provided. It's available on our website on Knowledge Base. That will help you identify any gaps in the workplace COVID secure. So at least as a minimum, do that document and or something similar, so you can see where you need to improve. There's a COVID safe working safely guide you can download. There's a number available online. The HSE and IOSH and I believe ACAS have provided something similar. So there's a number of different ones, but at least have that to hand so you can see what you need to be doing. There's a good example of the HSE one. Download, complete and display the COVID secure poster. I'm hoping you've all done that, but it might be now, after reviewing your risk assessment, that you might need to go and make some changes there, and just make sure that's up to date. Have you got a COVID-19 health and safety check sheet? There's an example of one. There's a number of different ones around, but is there something that you could go back and look at to make sure that things are being done on a daily, weekly basis? Maybe opening and closing check sheets, cleaning, security could all go on there as well. So that should you be asked in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks time, or you get investigated, you could then pull that check sheet out and say, yes, actually we are cleaning, we are sanitising, we did change to 3 metre spacing on the 15th of January or whatever it might be. So think about maybe bringing in a health and safety COVID-19 check sheet. And again, the staff and visitor declaration form, some way of capturing who is coming in the building, what time they came in the building, and just getting them to commit to that they haven't been to anywhere they shouldn't have been, they're not suffering from any symptoms, and they're signing against all the declaration statements. And again, that's something we can help you with. There are also a number available online. What else can you do? We've already talked about involving your people. Communicate, train and support your staff. They need to feel safe and supported, understand what they can do. More than anything, I think you need to listen to any feedback, any questions, any queries that they might have. I think there'll be a number that are feeling vulnerable, but not only about their position, but also about coming back to work, and just how much the pandemic has winged its way across the country. So talk to your staff, find out how they're feeling on a regular basis. Check, check, check. Don't just rely on the policies and procedures. There's a number of companies that use policies and procedures as a paper exercise, as we've already said. Check things are working as they should be. Test the system and get your managers, ops directors, or whatever positions you've got to go out and maybe make sure things are as you think they should be. Can you think about rotating staff around into maybe a team A, team B scenario, changing the working hours, limit staff from moving around the workspace, and think about different buildings. If you're not using meeting rooms at the moment, could they be turned into something different? If you're not using boardrooms or storage areas, Could they be turned into something different? Could people stagger their working times and come in and leave earlier or later to try and limit the amount of people we have in the facility? And there's some, if you want to take a photo of that, or I think this presentation will be sent out anyway, there's obviously some good guidance there. The first one is the HSE website itself, but the coronavirus part of it. The second link there, I'm not sure if you're aware, there are 14 user guides at the moment that cover pretty much all the industries we have in the UK, from retail outlets to factories and shops to places of mass coverage, storage, farming, whatever it might be. Go and have a look at that link, because your industry will probably be on there, and it will just give you up-to-date advice on what you should be doing for your own industry that you operate in currently. So the last of the streams that we identified was the home worker risk assessment, or you guys identified as the home worker risk assessment, and just how you manage remote workers. And I think the first statement there is it's not just health and safety. The home worker risk assessment should contain a number of different sections, and I think it's really worth noting that even though people are working from home, you still have a duty of care over them as their employer. And if you're allowing them to work in their own homes, you need to make sure that it's safe to do so and they're in the right environment. So think about display screen equipment. Greg alluded to earlier in his presentation about the amount of equipment that staff have had to take home, from screens to chairs and tables, desks, phones, headsets, whatever it might be. Is it the right equipment for what they need to be doing? Has it been serviced? Is it still working properly? It's probably worth just checking now that 9 to 10 months on, it's still as it should be. And there's a separate DSE check sheet and also assessment should you need to do that. Fire safety. While it's the employee's own home, we still need to make sure that the fire safety standards are being maintained. You might want to ask if they've got smoke alarms fitted, a fire alarm fitted, have they got first aid kits, have they got fire extinguishers. Now, what I'm not suggesting is that you have to go and buy first aid kits and fire extinguishers for every member of your team that's working from home. However, it'd be good to know how many floors their house is, what their escape route might be. So the home worker risk assessment would need to have a section on fire safety, and also electricity. Again, it sounds strange because everybody's got electricity in their homes, but just thinking about how things are powered, are they checked, are they turned off at night? If people are running more systems, screens, laptops and equipment from home, have they thought about how that's then going to affect their own electrical system? Cyber security. There's more and more people working from home and logging into or partnering their devices with their home Wi-Fi systems. It might be worth thinking about how that would, could anybody expose that? Could anybody then jump on that and find out any sensitive information about the company? So there's a section on the home worker risk assessment about cyber security and how that can be increased for home workers. And again, privacy. Are there other members of the family that could look into things that would normally be in the work setting? Could there be is there any sensitive information that somebody else could get hold of and use it against the company? So there's a section on privacy. First aid we've mentioned, but again, it'd be worth thinking about whether or not all of the staff are aware of first aid if they're working from home. Heating and ventilation, there again, unfortunately, with the COVID-19 guidelines, ventilation needs to be looked at. We know that it's an airborne virus, so there's a section in the home worker risk assessment about opening windows, if they're using air conditioning, the amount of natural air that comes through, and again, the same with heating. Stress. You might think that people that are working from home wouldn't be under stress because they're in their home environment. However, that can go the other way, and unfortunately, mental health issues can manifest themselves because they're not in the working environment and they feel that they've got children to look after, the home to run, and also work deadlines to meet as well. So there's a section on stress and stress management in the home worker risk assessment. What to do in an emergency, should there be an emergency, and again, it doesn't have to be a fire, it could be anything in the home. Mental health as well, and lone working would also be in there. So don't just think that the home worker risk assessment is a health and safety document. It is. However, there's a number of other sections that you might want to consider adding in there. and just their general welfare with regards to breaks, meal times, and stuff like that. So what tools are available? Home worker policy is available, and you should think about either creating one or using one. This is a commitment to what your company is going to do, your SME company is going to do with regards to home working. There's a self-assessment form that any home worker can complete, which again would then form the basis of the home worker risk assessment. There's an IOSH home working guide. I'm a member of IOSH, which is the Institute of Safety and Health, and it's a great body to be part of. They produce some really good literature, and one of those is the Home Office and Mobile Office working guide, and also managing remote workers. These are available online. You don't have to be a member to pick these up, much the same as the HSE ones are as well. There's also an ACAS guide for employers on home working, and again, this is certainly worth looking at individually, these documents, but as a suite to give you some idea of how to structure your home working policy and some of the things you would need to do with staff who are working from home. So there's a few tools there that are available for home working. So how can we help you, or how can I help you? Well, there is a free COVID-19 self-assessment tool online on our website, which you can use, download, fill it in, and you'll then see the gaps that you might need to put in place for your workplace to be COVID secure. Talk to us. I offer a free 30-minute health and safety call, which can be anything you want it to be, really, from COVID to fire safety to health and safety, mental health, and a number of other topics that I cover. Safeguarding, first aid, and the like. So please contact me if you'd like to take advantage of that free call. There's also a free COVID-19 risk assessment template that we've built for SMEs to use, and it's had really good feedback. So you can use that with our pleasure, and hopefully you'll find that of use in the workplace. And again, also the staff and visitor declaration form is also on there on our website as well that you can use, along with the free workplace check sheet. So I think that is all my slides done. I'd like to thank you for your attention. Hopefully you found that useful. I'm going to hand back to Greg, who's going to continue with the presentation. Thanks for having me on, and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, I'm just going to do one quick poll before we pass over to Graham to talk through the finance aspects of the report. So the next poll really is just to capture whether you wanted to reach out to Dom for any of the tools that he talked about. So you should see a poll on your screen. So yeah, just simply tick if you want us to send you the COVID-19 self-assessment, arrange a free call with Dom about any health and safety concerns you've got. We've got the COVID-19 risk assessment template, the staff visitor declaration checklist, and the workplace checklist there as well. You can tick as many as you apply, and we'll just make sure that we send you the right ones, and we'll arrange a call with Dom after the webinar. So just give that a few more seconds, and then we're going to pass you over to Graham, who's going to take over the next part of the webinar.
Thanks, Greg, and good afternoon, everybody. And just a thanks to both Greg and Dom for some of the areas that they've covered already on this webinar. I think there's certainly some very interesting areas there, and they definitely resonate with us and what we've experienced as a business over the past 10 months.
Graham, please would you just change your screen so that we can see the presentation?
Yeah, sure. Dale, could you
Thank you.
put the presentation? Great, thank you. I'm going to pick up on some of the finance issues raised, and Adele, could we get back to our slides, please? That's it. Thank you. So I'm going to pick up on some of the finance issues raised, and very briefly going to cover the following. So I'll just do a quick introduction to Deloitte Propel for those of you that are not aware of us. I'm going to cover very briefly some of the issues that were highlighted in the survey, go over some practical measures that you might want to implement, and then also we're going to do a quick demonstration of some of the tools that are available to help you. These are the tools that we use with a number of our clients, and there may be ones that can assist you as well. So in terms of brief introduction, talking about Deloitte Propel. Deloitte Propel was set up 4 years ago and is a division of Deloitte, and it was set up with the intention of supporting SMEs and smaller businesses, and basically operating in a part of the market where Deloitte wouldn't historically have had any sort of presence. And just a quick introduction to myself. My name's Renwick. I'm a director at Deloitte, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Deloitte Propel. I've also got with me today one of my colleagues, Adil Khan. He's a senior manager within the team, and he's going to be running the demonstration of the tools at the end of the session. So next slide, please. So just introducing Deloitte Propel. Deloitte Propel was set up, as I say, to support startups and smaller businesses, and we support clients with a technology-based end-to-end accounting service. So in terms of the full service that we offer to clients, they cover all aspects of finance. So day-to-day bookkeeping, VAT returns, management information, cash flow, as well as the year-end statutory accounts and corporation tax filings. There's a couple of points that I'd just like to pick up on there. In terms of the bookkeeping, what we're trying to ensure that our clients are doing is making sure information's up to date, and so that the clients can actually understand the position of the business at any point in time. The management information should help to understand the performance of the business, and any support that we give with cash flow preparation and considerations to support them in any discussions that they might have in terms of discussions with banks, future investment, that type of thing. As well as that, we also provide a compliance-only offering, and that's focused really on supporting the directors and owners in fulfilling their statutory responsibilities. So that's not just about preparing and filing accounts, but it's about making sure that financial accounts give a fair and accurate reflection of the business and can be relied upon by banks and investors. So what were the key areas that were covered in the survey? And it's not a surprise really that the main points coming up were around cash flow and profitability. And I think there's one other point that I would put on here as well, and that is just around your statutory responsibilities as directors and owners. Given some of the strains that have been put on businesses over the past 10 months with COVID and the pandemic, the signing of accounts and your responsibilities are really key, and it's a really hot topic around submission of accounts at the moment. So I've just highlighted some practical steps that you can think about and consider. I think it is absolutely critical to ensure that you're on top of your information. So your bookkeeping needs to be completely up to date and all of your transactions recorded. When you're making decisions either about profitability or cash flow, it is very difficult to make any decisions if you don't have up-to-date information. In terms of your cash flow, which was the main area of concern for people and is particularly pertinent at the moment, you've got to have an up-to-date cash flow and understand in detail what money you've got coming in, and also understanding and making sure that you've got enough money, enough cash to pay employees, suppliers, etc. into the future. And the key for me when managing cash flow is making decisions quickly and being extremely proactive in terms of making those decisions and communication. And a point that Dom raised on his presentation, and when he was talking about communicating more with employees and talking about and discussing mental health and mental issues. Well, for me as well, communication is absolutely key. You know, so if you see that you've got issues coming up, and it might be in 3 months' time, it might be in 6 months' time, but if you see that you've got cash flow issues coming up in that time scale, speak to people in advance. So if you want to defer payments to the HMRC, to suppliers, even to your employees in terms of salaries, talk to them in advance and plan accordingly. Don't wait until it's too late. And you know, I would just reiterate that throughout this period, so for, you know, for the time that we're all working from home and working out of the office, it is critical to over communicate and continue to communicate all of the time. So, you know, don't leave things until the last minute, just speak to people. And you may actually be pleasantly surprised in terms of what you can agree with your suppliers or the HMRC. The final point that I would just raise there is about understanding your statutory responsibilities. And if you don't, you know, reach out. We can certainly give an indication of you know, what you need to do and what your responsibilities are. So that's a very quick whistle-stop tour. And I've spoken about being on top of the detail. There's a number of tools that we actually use within Propel with how we support clients. So I'll pass over to Adil now, who's going to give a demonstration of some of the tools that we use and which may be beneficial to you.
Thank you, Graham. Hi, everyone. It's Adil here. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Great. So, so one of the accounting tools that we use is Xero. So now Xero is cloud-based platform, and to support the automation, we also use Receipt Bank in conjunction to Xero. Now, what Receipt Bank does is really take all the receipts, convert it into electronic format, and that helps us to automate the accounting process. Now, Receipt Bank, there's an app as well on your phone, so you can download it on your phone and take a picture and post it, or you can also send it via email. So when you send the receipt to Receipt Bank, it'll appear here, as you can see on the screen, and it's very easy. You can see the receipt here, and then you can choose the right tax codes, and then simply post it to Xero. Now, when it goes to Xero, this is how Xero dashboard looks like. One of the great things about Xero is we can have live bank feeds in Xero, so we can see all the bank details and data within Xero, and it's very easy to reconcile as well. So I'll just show you one example. You can just click on reconcile, and it can actually automatically tells you that some of the transactions you can just reconcile straight away, and then you press OK, and then it goes into your trial balance. Now, I just want to show you how profit and loss looks like here, and then how much data you can access straight away from Xero. So this is how it looks like. You can actually go into each transaction, and you can see the actual invoice straight away as well. Right. And that's how you can access the invoice. Now, there are a lot of reports available here for you to access. The most easiest way to access any report is to just type in here. I'll just type in management report. You can just go in there, and then it'll show you. I'll just download one for you. So you can see the cash summary, profit and loss account, balance sheet, age receivable, and age payables. And you can just download in PDF, however you want, and it's very easy to access. Now, the third tool that we use in addition to Receipt Bank and Xero is called Futily. Now, Futily is linked in with Xero as well, and it's taking all the information automatically from Xero. This is another tool that we use for forecasting as well. This is the very standard dashboard that you can see. That starts from all of your operating profit, sales by account, EBITDA, and it'll show you in this graphs and charts form, and that's really useful for all the directors and any of the investors really to see the business performance. Now you can also use this for the forecasting. I'll show you a very simple example of one of the scenario. You can set any scenario that you like. It's very easy to use. Again, it's taking the data from Xero, and you can actually enter all the numbers for the forecast. For example, it's just showing one of the forecasts that has a same retention as previous years and taking 20% growth, and then it's shown in this chart. Now, again, this is the forecasting tab. You can just go in, and there are different scenarios that you can pick. And again, so in past we have helped lots of businesses really to support them in their cash flow forecasts, especially during the COVID time. Lots of businesses approached us to help them to prepare some of the forecasts and reports for it can be the bounce back loans, or it can be any other loans that they are applying with their own banks. Now you have our contact details. You can contact myself or Graham via email. You can also visit us on our website, which is propelbydeloitte.com. And any questions, please feel free to contact, and we're happy to help. That's all from me. I'll hand back to Greg.
Thanks, Adil. I'm just going to take back control. So you should be able to see my screen again now. So all the contact details for Deloitte are on the screen in front of you. Before we sort of move to any Q&As, I just wanted to do a quick poll to see if anybody wanted to arrange a call with Deloitte to try and work to see if there's anything that they can do to help you with your finances and help you sort of manage your cash flow, cost management, as well as look at working with you to create any budget forecasts as well. So you should have a quick poll coming up on your screen, and quite simply the answers yes or no, and then we'll move to some questions. Okay, I'm just going to close the poll. So there were a couple of questions came in around the budget scenarios that there are deal around. There's lots of different options there. I guess nobody knew COVID was going to happen, so I guess you couldn't add a COVID forecast until it happened. But I guess a lot of people were quick to respond and look at the impact of COVID on their business to be able to quickly adjust sort of cash flow forecasts. There was obviously a lot of companies sort of withholding payments, trying to keep cash in their businesses, which was trickling down and affecting income in terms of cash into the bank for SMEs as well. Is that something that you worked with clients with in terms of how to work out sort of forecast when cash would actually hit their bank account, and or is there any tools that you integrate with Xero to sort of help chase debt collection as well?
Yes, 100%. I mean, the first thing we do is to help directors to understand the business and have the discussions where they want to take the business forward, and help them to prepare the numbers. And again, we use Futily because it's a great platform. It actually shows the numbers really nicely, so it's easy to understand and to see where business is going. But yeah, definitely, if anybody's interested, please just email me, and I'm happy to help.
Yeah, because obviously part of the report there was some concerns about debt serviceability. So I think quite a few SMEs were quick to try and take advantage or use the CBILS and bounce back loans to sort of put cash into the business to sort of bridge that cash gap. Yes. But it's not long now before sort of first payments of those loans will be due. Sort of, I think it's March, April in most scenarios if they took them early. And I guess it's working out, you know, can clients, SMEs afford to service those loans and put that into cash modelling as well, which it sounds like something that you would help with.
Yeah, 100%. We won't be able to speak to the bank on their behalf, but we'll definitely can help them to put the numbers in their P&L and balance sheets, and then help them to really plan ahead.
That's brilliant.
Greg, could I just step in there? I think there's two parts of it for me with regard to this. And you know, Adil did a great job of sort of demonstrating some of the tools that are available. I think the key thing is for all of us, and we're going through the same process, for all of us to fully understand the transactions that are going on in the business and the impact that that's going to have over the coming months. I think once you've got that detail, the second part of that is then the communication with whoever that may be. So if it's, you know, the banks with regard to CBILS, then it's, you know, it's opening that discussion, going to them with an up-to-date business plan and saying, actually, I'm not going to be able to pay you in 3 months' time, but this is my business plan. It looks like it's going to be June when when we're starting to get through the pandemic and we see a window of opportunity. Let's defer my payments for 3 months, and being proactive and have those discussions proactively.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we use Xero ourselves, and it's a great tool in terms of having, you know, instant access to you know, linking to your bank account and seeing when people have paid as well, so you know exactly what's outstanding and when, and use that as a tool to chase outstanding payments where you can. But also it gives you a short cash gap as well, I think. So it kind of shows you what money you're expected over the next 30-60 days as well, which is a useful tool for SMEs to try and make sure they've got enough cash coming in to their business as well.
Yeah.
If anybody has any additional questions, then the contact details are on the screen, but we will send those around after the webinar as well. So just a few more slides just to let you know about some other upcoming webinars that we're running. So some of the themes from the survey we're pulling out into additional webinars in amongst our routine webinars as well. So I won't read them all out. They are on our screen, and there will be a link that follows on our follow-up email post webinar as well. There's lots of things to think about this year though, with life post Brexit, IR35 coming through, and obviously health and safety topics that we're running throughout the year, and a key focus on mental health as well. We've even decided to talk about GDPR again, just, you know, everyone's looking for a change of talking about COVID, so we'll talk about GDPR instead. We have a regular newsletter as well, so if you've not already signed up, then please do. The link will follow up on our webinar as well. We will send out a feedback after the webinar as well, just to sort of give you feedback on any other topics that you want us to run. We typically run 2 webinars a month, and we obviously want to make sure we're catering for the needs of our audience. So if there's anything you want us to talk about, then please let us know. That just leaves me to thank Graham and Adil for joining us, and Dom for presenting on health and safety. We'll be closing the webinar shortly, and a follow-up link will follow with a link to the recording as well as any additional documents that you've requested as part of the webinar. Thank you everybody for your time, and I'll see you on our next webinar.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.